Live from the Gallup campus in Omaha, Nebraska, this is Called to Coach, show number 3, recorded on July 18th, 2013. Called to Coach is a resource for those who really want to help others understand their strengths. We have Gallup experts and independent strengths coaches share tactics, insights, and strategies to help coaches maximize the talent of individuals, their teams, and organizations around the world. Welcome, and I'm Jim Collison. If you have questions, comments, or contributions for the show, we do have a live chat room available during the show right below the main video window. Or you can, if you're listening to the recorded version of this, you can email those questions to us after the show. Just coaching@gallup.com, and don't forget to visit the Gallup Strength Center at gallupstrengthcenter, all one word, .com for all your coaching resources and training needs. Jeremy Petrosini is our host today. Jeremy works as a leadership and development consultant here at Gallup on the Riverfront. And Jeremy, it's great to see you today.
Yeah,
thanks
you too,
for
Jim.
Coming out.
Fun to be here. So I want to dive right in because I am really excited. I kind of teased out on our last call our guest for today, and Debby Kratky is who's joining us. She's the Director of Capacity Building and Training for Workforce Solutions in Tarrant County, where I think when we spoke last week, Debbie, it was about 150 degrees, so we're glad it's under 100 at least today down in Texas. But excited to have you with us. I want to dive right in because as you know, and most listeners on the call today, as we've been doing these Call to Coach calls, the primary audience of people joining us are individuals who really feel that sense of call to coach. And Gallup, obviously, with our Strength Finder assessment and our own personal passion, mission to see the talents and strengths of individuals unleashed around the world, it's pretty exciting for us that we know that we're just about at that 9 million point. Just over 8.9 million people have completed Strength Finder. But one of the things that we're most excited about is getting to a point where we can someday say that there's over 1 billion, with a B, people that have discovered their God-given talents and strengths. And so we can't do that without coaches like Debbie, like those of you out there. Our passion and mission is to at some point get to a point where we've got over 1 million coaches that are part of this strengths network that are really helping do that with the individuals they serve. So Debbie, I want to dive right into your role. I know part of what you've been doing there in Tarrant County, working obviously with people who have been in poverty, people who have been homeless, people who are ex-convicts. I mean, all those different components of people that even many people would put in the category of unemployable. And so I want to hear just some thoughts from you. Describe to us a little bit of what it is that you do in your day-to-day role there in Tarrant County.
Well, it's primarily my job to find where the holes are in service in the community. That's really what capacity building means. Right. And once we find those holes, we try to figure out ways or programs that would fill the gap. And that's how we started all this. In fact, it was working with people who were homeless but wanted to go back to college that started all this several years ago when we came across StrengthsFinder 2.0.
Awesome. And talk a little bit too, Debbie, about, or go ahead. Were you?
No, go ahead.
You have more to that? Talk a little bit about, you mentioned just coming across StrengthsFinder 2.0. I know even in our initial conversations, it was kind of fun for you because you were trying to figure out what legally and ethically can I do versus can't I do. So just talk a little bit more about that, about your guys' journey into even discovering strengths and how it fit into the day-to-day of what you're paid to do.
Yeah, it was actually one of the staff that worked for me that saved me on that. I had taken StrengthsFinder 2.0 at the recommendation of our senior planner, Jan Miles, and she had indicated that it was a great assessment and I needed to try, but I have to tell you, I've done hundreds of assessments, everything from Myers-Briggs to what color is your parachute. Yep. And honestly, I hadn't found anything that I thought translated into workforce or would help us in workforce. But I took the assessment and I was really shocked at how accurately it described me. And so from that experience, I thought I would give it a try. We had a group that was going to be going back to school, and they were on spring break. And in the homeless community, spring break that can be a hard time. So we decided to do a workshop, and I really made it up as I went along, and everything was based on strengths. And then after using it for a couple of years, I kind of got worried. I thought, uh-oh, I could be in serious trouble here. I don't know if I'm supposed to have permission or what. But one of our staff, Stephen Goodman, decided to contact Gallup and kind of let the cat out of the bag. And I have to tell you, from the first moment I talked to staff at Gallup to now, I've just been blown away at how willing they've been to let us participate in this grand scheme.
Yeah, that's great, because I think what so many people out there are doing, Debbie, is they find themselves in situations like yours, whether it's part of their day-to-day job, whether it's something that they've built a business around. They find themselves wanting to help other people, and if they can help other people to improve performance in their day-to-day job, what they do, overall in their life satisfaction, are they living in their strengths even in their volunteer time? But the question is, what tools do you use to do that? There's a lot out there, like you said, but finding a tool like StrengthsFinder where you really are able to now think about that from job placement. So talk about that a little bit more. I know you shared some slides with us that we can pop up too, but talk about how you've kind of defined what some of the keys to success are with using strengths again as a tool in the process of helping some of these individuals.
A lot of people who have been out of the workforce for one reason or another for a good while find it incredibly difficult to go through an application process or have an interview even. And what Strengths did in the very beginning was give them a language, a way to describe themselves that they had never thought about. And quite frankly, the biggest barrier has been getting them to accept they have these talents. But once they figure it out, once we go through that with them, and they start to embrace that, then everything from using a descriptive word on a job application to remembering discussions to use in an interview make all the difference. And we've had incredible success in hiring from all different facets of private sector. And I believe a huge piece of that is the fact that they now have that asset in their human capital portfolio.
Yeah, so let me pop up a slide, one of the ones that you gave us, where I think one of the things that's cool that you shared is you actually have all of your volunteers and some of your paid staff there that are in this role of developer, the job developer.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that. Talk about how you kind of develop them as a coach or advisor to these individuals and what that looks like.
Well, it really has been a process. We've been doing this now for going on 4 years in different programs, and it has been honestly to get the staff to accept their own talents has been interesting. So that was first, in getting the staff to not only understand but embrace their own strengths. And once they did that and still working on it, I think it made it easier for them to then mentor and coach the individuals they work with.
Yeah, that's great. So the slide I popped up there too, I think you can see that, but I was mentioning to Jim when we looked at that. So the caption is correct, right? This is the first day of work for this gentleman in 32 years.
Yes, this particular gentleman had been in prison for over 32 years, and he really, a lot of people would have thought him to be unemployable, but the person you see in the picture there with him, Mercedes, is his case manager, and his job developer and the case manager worked incredibly hard to get him to accept who he was and who he wanted to be, to set goals, and then to go out and accomplish those goals.
Yeah. And talk a little bit too. I know you have in one of your bullets that a key component of it is wanting them to discover their passion, right? Even referring to them as kind of the customer.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about what that means. That whole idea of even where I know you will ask people, what's your dream job?
Absolutely.
Share with people how you do that and why you do that.
Well, you know, what I found is that I have preconceived notions about what somebody's dream job ought to be. I remember the first time after we really had gotten this particular group to buy into the whole concept of embracing their talent, one particular gentleman told me it was his dream job to be a custodian. And I could not imagine anyone wanting to actually be a custodian. But his statement to me
right,
was,
we don't like cleaning our own toilets, let alone somebody else's. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I guess I looked rather shocked. But he said he loved going into chaos and then leaving it in order. So for him, it was that process, and I never thought of it that way. So one of the things we all had to learn was to not put our passion in someone else's place, but to let that person flourish and have their own passion. And sometimes it may take a couple of weeks of discussion before that person actually starts to disclose that passion.
Yeah. When was it for you personally, Debbie, that you discovered your dream job? Because I think it's really cool too that you mentioned that even with some of your own staff learning their top 5 before they even go to help these other individuals, there's a little bit of self-discovery. They need to say, am I doing this? Am I helping other people? Am I coaching people because I'm paid to do it or because I volunteer to do it? Or is it really a passion of mine? So tell us a little bit about that for your own journey.
Well, for me, I've been in my dream job for the last 31 years. I shouldn't even say how many years ago that was. But I've just been really lucky to be blessed with people who have been my mentors to really encourage me to live out what I believe to be my dream job. And right now our executive director, Judy McDonald, and our senior director, Jill Navarrete, have encouraged us, especially in these past 5 years, to do what we believe we're called to do, and I think that makes all of us better. The other thing that's interesting about our special projects is that every staff there volunteered for the job. There's no one that got placed there because they had to be there. So if for some people working with people who are chronically homeless or other people coming out of prison, it wouldn't seem like a dream job, but for them it is what they volunteered to do and what they love doing.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, because I think you're right. I think for a lot of people, it's somebody else's dream is not their dream, and I think even sometimes as an advisor or coach, we sometimes just want to step in as an instructor, right? We want to be the ones who just tell them, hey, even sometimes, especially if it's a younger kid who's got so much potential in front of them, and we want to shake them a little bit and say, here's what you ought to be doing. But I love the fact that like you said, it starts with stopping and listening and hearing from them.
Yes.
I know one of the things that you mentioned a lot too is as you and I had connected and just kind of talked about both your passion for this and just how rewarding it is to see the transformation of people, that there really is a component of not just using the term human capital, but understanding what that means. So I know the state had kind of put out a model for that, but talk about how you brought that to life and how even using strengths, that became kind of central, the key core component to helping those individuals really see themselves as human and to see themselves as capital.
Right, right. It really started with that whole concept I got the whole concept of human capital actually from Gallup. From the different books that I have read on the subject that Gallup has published, and the discussion around human capital with staff at Gallup, I started to try to think of that as far as our customers are concerned, and where a lot of people wouldn't understand that these individuals come with a lot of assets, and what we try to teach them is to play to their assets, and those deficits that would count against them in their portfolio are things they need to learn how to work around or eliminate, and that's really the job of our coaches and our case managers to assist that customer in playing to their strengths. And I think the model you're talking about that the Texas Workforce Commission put out is amazing that we came to the same place. This was really what a lot of people want to start with is hard skills. They want to look at, okay, does this person know how to weld? Or does this person have a master's degree? Well, what we think is the core isn't in the hard skills or even in the soft skills. The core of that human capital lies in their strengths and in their talents. And so that's where we start. We start there and then grow the rest of it.
Yeah, no, I love when you showed me that model, Debbie, because I think, when we talk about strengths a lot, and like you mentioned in many of our books, when we talk about talent times investment, is really what equals strength. That's the formula to get there, but it's got to start with talent, because that investment, whether it's learning about something from a knowledge standpoint, whether it's gaining experience, whether it's learning how to do it, kind of which we refer to as skill, oftentimes you're right, whether it's in any job, whether it's job placement or even it's just even trying to tap into an individual in a current role or potentially a job promotion, that's oftentimes where we start, or where hiring managers start, is what have you done, what are you good at? And there's a component of that's talent, but I think we often forget to just step back and really look at to say, does this person have the natural innate talent to do this well? If it's selling, can they sell well, and now how do we help them do that? So there was a question that popped up that I think you were going to hit on, Jim, about dream jobs and strengths and how that plays into
actually,
that.
chat room's been very lively, so thanks, chat, for being out there doing that. Debbie, they were asking what your top 5 are, and there's even a guess out there of what it is. So can you give us your top 5?
Yes, my number 1 strength is input, which explains to a lot of people a lot of things. I love research, and then I not only research, but then I love bringing it back. I love sharing that information, and that really is huge to me. Strategic is another one of my strengths. Ideation is another, and maximizer is another. And have I gotten to 5 yet? I'm thinking close. So that, they really were not what I thought they would be. I thought communication, because that's what my background is in, I thought communication would be in my top 5, but it's not. It seems to me it's more important for me to understand the information and then share that information with the right people than it's just a matter of, can I talk to you well?
Right.
And then let me ask you, which one do you think you're maximizing or using the most in your current role right now?
Probably between ideation is incredibly important in my role right now, because I have to be able to understand and see a vision of what services still need to be provided, what funding needs to be provided, and that's where Maximizer comes in too. So really, I've learned from you guys that really it's all about pulling forward the one that you need at that particular time.
Yeah, no, that's great. And part of that too, in leveraging our own talents and strengths to really do what we do best, to be successful time and time again. Again, the goal of a strength, and even the way we define it, is that consistent, near perfect performance. So it's doing something. You see it in athletes, you see it in musicians. You just say, I know they can do this. I know when you put them on the spot, they're going to deliver. And that's where every human being ultimately wants to play. They want to feel like they can contribute something to the tribe, to the community, to their place of business, where they really do feel like they give back. I want you to talk a little bit. So one of the questions that came up is, do you have to use or help somebody uncover their talents, their top 5, to really, does that play into them accomplishing their dreams? So talk about ways that you've seen that tool help you get to a dream a little bit faster with somebody.
Okay, one of the interesting things I'd point out in that regard was really one of the reasons I think Gallup was initially intrigued with what we were doing. What we found, and no one knows why, but it seems that the number 1 strength of all of the strengths that come out over and over again with the people coming back from prison, and the people who are homeless, and the people who are in drug and alcohol treatment, responsibility tends to be in their top 5. And we find that absolutely fascinating. A lot of people just really can't imagine that someone coming
out of... you think the opposite, right?
Yeah.
You think a responsible person can't commit a crime. A responsible person needs to, they wouldn't be able to live with themselves if they did. But yeah, talk a little bit more about that.
Well, it's fascinating. We have the discussion in every class, because the first day is really all about strengths. We get them together in a 2-week boot camp that is all about employment and how to get a job and keep a job, but really at the core of that boot camp is their top 5 strengths. And as I said, responsibility is one that just keeps cropping up. So we have that conversation, and sometimes I hear, well, one of the reasons I had problems was because I felt guilty. Or another is, after being in prison and learning what I needed to do to get out, I feel responsible to follow through on that. So I guess there are as many interpretations as to why that happens as there are people thinking about it. It's interesting, and one area that we're going to keep exploring as time goes on.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about that, I think of the movie Batman Begins. You know, where Bruce Wayne basically allows himself to become a prisoner and homeless to realize the desperation that it causes people to do. And I think that's what you're talking about, is these individuals, where we may not think about it that way, a responsibility because of the circumstances to feel like I need to provide for my family.
Exactly.
Now, the means of which they're providing for their family aren't probably what their family would want, nor any of us that they're offending against would want. But talk about, there was a unique story you shared about a gentleman named Lonnie.
Yes.
Where that whole process, I want you to take us through it, because, again, both his past situation, again, probably categorized by many as unemployable, and even to himself, probably lowered his own standards to just say, if I could just get a job, if I'm pulling weeds and cleaning toilets or whatever it is that he would consider his least, the least likely thing he would want to do. Right. But you didn't let him go there. You, again, just like anybody else, said, Lonnie, what's your dream? I know when you shared his top 5 that responsibility was number 1. Yes. But tell us his story a little bit. I'd love for people to just hear that story of how you coached him and that transformation that you then saw in and through his story.
Well, when I met Lonnie, he was from New Orleans. That's where Baton Rouge area is where he grew up. He served many years in Angola prison in Louisiana, and anyone who knows that area knows it's a very hard place to come back from. He was out and then was in New Orleans during Katrina. He came here during the evacuation process, and unfortunately got in trouble when he was up here. I met him when he was released from prison that last time. And you're exactly right. He wanted any job, just something to do. But we talked about what his dream was. And his dream was to go back and be a captain on a tugboat up and down the Mississippi. And he literally had a plan. He took it step by step, and he did it. Now I see him all the time on Facebook. His life is great, and he's living his dream. He's a captain of a tugboat down in Louisiana.
Yeah, so this picture we have up is one he sent you then of on the tugboat, right?
Yeah,
driving
that was my birthday present. He sent that to me for my birthday.
Wow, that's cool. So talk about with his pop that screen back up, Jim. So with his top 5, talk about from a coaching perspective. You heard him. You wouldn't let him settle for just Debbie, give me a job. But you said, let's go back to that childhood dream of driving that tugboat, right?
Right.
So with his top 5, talk about, again, you hit on responsibility a little bit for how you've seen this commonality, this common theme with individuals you've worked with. But help us think about how you then looked at his 5 and helped him kind of map out that plan, that path.
Well, with responsibility being his number 1 strength, it was a great place to start. He also, as you can tell in his top 5, achiever is one of them, as is discipline. Discipline was always very important to him, and he felt like if he could discipline himself and expect more from himself, he would do it. But you also see one of his top 5 is belief. Slowly but surely, Lonnie began to believe in himself again. And I think that was a huge contributor to his overall success. This was not a quick thing. He had to work for it, but he kept that discipline going, and he achieved it. So I think you can see in those top 5 the reason why he succeeded. Yeah.
No, that's. I love the fact that even just for him, he knew sending it to you on your birthday.
Yeah.
Was here's your bonus check, right?
That
here's
was
what you
it.
get paid to do.
That was it. That was it.
That's really cool. Really cool.
Yeah.
Jim, I know we just have a few minutes left. I want to see if there are other questions that have popped up that would be helpful for Debbie to answer.
Well, and let me say they've been kind of specific to how do I get coaching resources and some of those kinds of things. We'll say because the recorded version folks aren't listening to this. If you go to GallupStrengthsCenter.com, of course, all of our coaching resources are available out there. That'll give you a second here for those that are live, and if you're joining us for the live show. Maybe you've got some direct questions for Debbie and they missed them. We had some lively chat and we missed them, so we'll give you just a second more to put them in there, and I'll watch them as they come through.
Yeah, so Debbie, I know you mentioned a little bit just some of the Gallup resources, some of the books. I know you came here for a networking session with other coaches.
Yes.
Is there anything else you'd recommend to others out there? I know you have taken an interest and looked at some of the courses we have available. I don't think you've had the chance to go through any of those with official certification yet, but talk a little bit, just your answer as somebody who's out there doing this, of what you'd recommend to some of those listening in.
Well, I know that Jan Miles, our planner that I told you about earlier, and I are planning on attending in Washington, D.C. in October.
Great.
One of those classes. Our management believes it's important enough for us to go through that certification process. But honestly, I think to go online to your website, to the coach's website, you can find all kinds of valuable things. And I've gone back and listened to your previous live webcams and found them to be interesting. The other thing I think is to really study your own strengths and understand where your strengths come from. It makes it much easier to start with yourself and move out than it does to start with someone else.
Yeah, that's great. And I think you heard that. If anybody who listened last time, we had Kurt Leesveld, who's one of our kind of most seasoned coaches, kind of mentored under Don Clifton, and just really has devoted the majority of his time right now. He's full-time at Gallup, but majority of his time in coaching coaches. And so he mentioned that same thing, that self-development for any of you individuals out there that are coaches that are thinking about what this means. And Debbie, even back again to one of your earlier comments, helping your staff and volunteers to really own it themselves so that they really can help the individuals that they serve. So, and as Debbie mentioned, there are several different courses. Again, this has been a big shift for us since January. If you aren't familiar with the classes that are out there, interested in even seeing what's available, there's a whole gamut. We know that for different individuals, whether you're paying for it yourself or you have an organization paying for it, we've made available for the first time ever a real simple coaching kit that you can get information on online. Again, you can now order top 5 or full 34 theme codes online that weren't available before. And we've got 3 great courses, whether you're somebody that just wants to get the basics of strengths, or if it's you really are thinking about this for individual performance and individuals that you're coaching, as well as teams and managers. So there's a lot of great information out there that's now really available to you all to just better yourself and develop around that. So I do want to hit on too, as we're how are we doing in time here, Jim?
We're coming up maybe a minute or two.
Okay. But I do want to hit that you mentioned even just these calls. A big part of it is the live interaction. A big part of it is creating this sense of ongoing learning and networking availability. So August 9th, we're going to have our next call. Michael Dauphney will be the coach from San Diego. He'll be joining us, just talking about his experiences over the last decade of individuals he's been able to coach, whether it be senior executives, global leaders, and even how he's been able to leverage that for some pretty cool, unique mission moments and things he's done, similar to what you're doing, Debbie, but even in third world countries. So it's always fun to hear from individuals like yourself just telling real life stories, telling the transformation stories of the Lonnies that are out there. So,
Jeremy, Debbie, thanks for coming out. This will end the live portion of the show, or the recorded portion. For folks who have joined us live, stay around for the post show. We'll stay around for 15 or 20 minutes, answer more questions out of chat, just kind of a more informal time. We'll wrap this part up. Debbie, thanks again for coming out. Been great having you this afternoon.
Thank you very much, and I hope other people out there who work with our customer base take advantage of this.
Absolutely. So stay around for the post show. We'll answer some of your questions. There were some good ones that came in, Debbie. I've got a question for you right off the bat. But stay around for the post show. Remember to join us again right here. And if you have any, if you'd like to go out and find a previous episode, you can go out to coaching.gallup.com, and you can find all the resources out at gallupstrengthcenter.com as well. Thanks for coming out. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.